teen librarian at the Scott County Public Library here in Georgetown, Kentucky. And I am here today for our summer reading program. We are going to be making some mug meals in a minute. So if you signed up for summer reading and you came in and picked up your bag, if you're a teen between 12 and 18, you will have gotten a little cookbook in it with all sorts of different mug meals that you can make pretty easily. And just to kind of have some fun, I'm going to try my hand at making 4 of these today. And just so you don't have to take my word for whether or not they turn out, I'm going to be pulling some guinea pigs from the rest of the library staff to try them. So hopefully they work. Otherwise, I might lose my street cred as a baker here. We'll see. All right, so first up, I'm going to make the banana bread. And that's our first recipe. And everything is pretty simple, nothing too crazy. But you need an egg, a banana. So I'm going to use this one that's kind of little brownish. I like my bananas to be a little green, so once they go brown like that, I go straight for banana bread every time. You need some flour here and some chocolate chips, which is going to be the best part. So I've got those over here. As you can tell, I brought everything with me from home. So I'm gonna get started. So in a bowl, most of these you can mix in your mug, but for this banana bread, we're gonna start with a bowl. Clear off a little bit of space here. Stack my colorful cups. All right. And I'm going to start peeling my banana. And I washed my hands before we started, so I promise my hands are clean. I'm just going to drop that right in there and put that aside to throw away. Now I'm just going to take a fork and not break my egg. That would be terrible. I'm just going to mash that up. So just squish it up with your fork. I'm intrigued. I want to try this one when it's done because I think this is going to be a nice, easy kind of breakfast meal that's going to be pretty filling. So, just kind of get it nice and mushy. You don't want, I mean, it's okay if it's a little lumpy, but you don't want like big lumps. You want it to be pretty cohesive or whatever. You know what I mean. All right, so once it's pretty mushed up, I'm going to work on adding in the rest of our ingredients. So next up, we're going to crack the egg and mix it in. I like to crack my eggs into a separate bowl whenever I'm baking, because I had an egg fly into my mixing bowl while it was mixing one time, and there's eggshell everywhere, and it was just not good. So to prevent that, now I just crack eggs into a separate bowl. Now that I have egg on my hand, I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Hang on. Okay. So I'm gonna look at my egg here in my bowl, and I know I did not get any shell in it, so I'm gonna go ahead and add it to my banana. Just right in there. And we're going to mix the egg and the banana together. So they're kind of well combined, just like that. All right, now we're going to add in our flour. And I just learned this. When you are measuring flour, a lot of people will kind of scoop flour in and then press it against the side of your container to get as much flour in as you should. Apparently you're not supposed to do that. Apparently you're supposed to kind of lightly fill your measuring tool and then scrape off the excess. Which makes sense. I never would have thought of it. So we have 1 egg, 1 banana, now we're going for 3 tablespoons of flour. And if you don't have one of these like icing spreaders or whatever, you can just use like the back side of a butter knife, any sort of straight edge. just to make sure you have the right amount. Okay. So there is our 3 tablespoons of flour. I'm going to cover that back up. And it calls for 1 tablespoon of chocolate chips. So we're supposed to add in about half of those. I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. And if you end up with more than 1 tablespoon of chocolate chips, I mean, oh no. Okay. So now I have my banana, my egg, my flour, and my chocolate chips. So I'm going to just mix that up. Probably could do this in a smaller bowl and then maybe your flour wouldn't go everywhere. But we're just gonna keep going. Okay. Mix that until everything is well combined. Okay. So all of my flour is combined into my banana and my egg. My chocolate chips are mixed in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my mugs over here, this L for library or Lauren, however you want to, and I'm going to grease the inside of it just with some butter here. So excuse me while I grab a butter knife and just take a little bit. I'm just going to take my fingers. I just promise I just washed my hands after the egg, but you could do this if you want to use like vegetable oil. You could put a little bit on a paper towel if you have a rubber spatula or anything. Anything to kind of help you. Just make sure your mug has a nice coating on it, and that way your banana bread doesn't stick to it. Okay. So now I've got, plus it adds a little bit of, butter to your banana bread. And who doesn't like that? Okay. And now I'm going to take a spoon and help get my banana bread mixture here into my mug. So if you have a rubber spatula, that would probably work better. I forgot one. So spoons work. We're just going to pour that in there. This bowl is kind of flexible, so that helps. Just get as much of that goodness in there as we can. All right. Set that aside in that. And now we have our banana bread in our mug. We're going to take our chocolate chips out again and get about half a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, and just kind of pop those right on top. So we've got a nice little covering of chocolate chips. And now is the fun part. Because my mug is kind of a bit bigger, it only fills it up to probably about there, so that's not quite halfway. So I'm going to start by microwaving it for 90 seconds on high, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so that won't take too long. And once it's microwaved for 90 seconds, we'll check it and see if it's done. If it still looks like it's still kind of liquidy almost, we'll go for another 30 seconds and just keep going in 30-second intervals up to 2.5 minutes. And by 2.5 minutes, it should definitely be done. All right. Make sure you're very careful when you pull these out of the microwave because they are very warm. And you can see we've got a nice little banana bread. And I don't see any liquid spots. So we are going to set this down and let it cool. It's quite toasty. You're gonna let it cool for at least a minute before you dig into this, but we're gonna go ahead and start making our next mug dessert. So next up, we are going to make our mug brownie. I'm excited about this one. All right, so we're just gonna take our regular microwavable mug. You want it to be about enough to hold a cup, so this one should be good. And we are going to mix together all of our ingredients. So we're going to start with another 3, oops, that's our sugar, we want our flour. We're going to start with our flour, and we're going to do 3 tablespoons again. So get a scoop and swipe. And I wish I could do this left-handed so I wouldn't have to put it down every time. I cannot scoop left-handed. So, all right, we have our 3 tablespoons of flour. 3 tablespoons of flour. Now we are going to get 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And normally you would probably do like packed brown sugar. So I'm just going to kind of fill up our tablespoon. Do the opposite of what we did with our flour. Okay, so that's about a tablespoon. We've got 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Set that aside. All right, and we are also going to do cocoa powder. 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. All right. So we've got that. We're going to swipe. And now I'm going to do 3 tablespoons of, right? Yep, flavorless oil. So by flavorless oil, they just mean not olive oil. Or some oils kind of have a flavor of their own, particularly olive oil. But you want to use something that's like a vegetable oil or canola oil or something like that that doesn't have a strong flavor. So we're going to overflow our spoon a little bit. It's okay. So we'll do 2 and 3. Okay. Now we have all of our oil. Just kind of let that drip in there a little bit more. And we need 3 tablespoons of water. So I'm going to hop back here to the sink behind me. Now we've got all of our tablespoons in there. We need just a pinch of salt, so just a tiny bit. I'm just going to pour a little bit out here into my palm and just grab a little pinch and sprinkle it in there. And then don't need much at all, so you can just get rid of the rest of it. Now we need half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I've got my vanilla here, brand new apparently, never used it. And my half teaspoon here. Okay. So I'm just gonna pour that in there. And our last ingredient, 2 teaspoons of chocolate chips. So let me grab my teaspoon here. And get a little bit generous with the chocolate chips. 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. All right. Now, whoops. Okay, so apparently you mix in the chocolate chips later, but it'll be fine. It's fine. It'll be fine. Okay. So I'm gonna mix with my fork here. And, oops, try not to make a mess. All right. So, there's our mug brownie. Everything looks pretty mixed in there. We've got our chocolate chips in there. I'm gonna just clean some of that batter up. Okay. Set that fork aside. Now, we're going to microwave this. I'm going to start with 45 seconds and then maybe go up to 60, and then kind of see where we go from there. So this one, instead of doing 30-second intervals, if it's still liquidy, I might do more like 15 because it doesn't seem to take as long. And it doesn't have egg in it, so you know, you don't want to overcook it. So, all right. So here is our mug brownie. And I think I ended up doing, well, maybe 1 minute and 15 seconds total, maybe a little bit longer. So it is nice and brownie looking. I'm excited to try this one myself. And this is another one, we're going to set it aside and let it cool. You want to let it cool probably for about 5 minutes before you dig in. So I'm going to set it aside with our banana bread, and we'll get started on our next mug cake. All right, I'm going to move on to our Funfetti mug cake and get started with that one. So we are going to start with our mug, and you want it to be able to hold at least 2.8 ounces of liquid, so I think we're good. And we are going to add 4 tablespoons of flour. And I've been using all-purpose flour for all of the recipes so far. If you want to play around with a different flour and whatnot, you totally can, but all-purpose usually works very well for cakes and everything like that. There's 4 tablespoons of flour. So now we need a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. I have this over here. Find my 1/4 teaspoon. There it is. I'm just gonna get that right in there. All right. Now we also need 2 teaspoons of just white sugar, granulated sugar. So we're going to grab that here. Make sure that's kind of even. All right, so that is our dry ingredients. Now we're going to add our wet ingredients. So we are going to add 3 tablespoons of milk. And the recipe does call for fat-free milk. I'm going to be using 2% because that's what I had. So again, just play around with it. If you guys prefer, you know, oat milk or almond milk, try it. See what it does. All right. And now it also calls for a 1/2 tablespoon of vegetable oil, which, if I remember correctly, is 1.5 teaspoons. Double check me on that one because I don't remember exactly, but I think it's 1.5. We're gonna go with 1.5 teaspoons for 1/2 tablespoon. There's 1 teaspoon and 1/2 teaspoon. To make our 1/2 tablespoon. Pretty sure a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, so that's where I'm getting my math from. If I'm wrong, we'll find out. Okay, and now we're going to add 1/8 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So get my vanilla back out here. Find out where I opened it. Here we go. Okay. So 1/8 teaspoon, oops, plus a little bit. Vanilla goes everywhere, every time. Okay, so we're going to mix that with our fork and get that all combined together. So we're going to go until the batter is smooth. Oop, and all over the table. That's okay. So nice and smooth cake batter. Set our whisk to the side. And now is the fun part. So we are going to add a teaspoon of sprinkles. Let's see. I got some green ones. Let's see. There we go. I'll just do green and blue. I've got my little toad here. It's more fun that way. Usually I would recommend probably just having your sprinkles already mixed together so you don't have to fool with this, but you do whatever you want. And you don't have to use these sprinkles, these Jimmy sprinkles or rainbow sprinkles, whatever sprinkles you want to try. These are just usually the ones used in confetti cake things. And some red. Okay. Alright, so that is a teaspoon of sprinkles. I'm gonna add that in there. I put my fork over there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my teaspoon to mix them in so we're not missing out on any cake. All right, and now we're gonna add about half a teaspoon of sprinkles on top. I'm just gonna measure with my heart because my heart likes sprinkles. So, sprinkles. So, there is our Funfetti mug cake. We're gonna pop it in the microwave for about a minute, and then I'll check it. And if it still looks a little liquidy around the edges, I'll probably do it for maybe about 30 seconds more until it doesn't look liquidy anymore. So this is our Funfetti mug cake. Our sprinkles have kind of melted together on top, but that's okay. So this one I did, I think, for about a minute and a half. Because after a minute, the edges were still a little wet looking, so now it just looks like nice, yummy cake. So I'm going to set it aside so it can cool, and we will get started on our next recipe. All right, so now we're going to get started on our fourth mug dessert. This is the monkey bread in a mug. I'm really excited about this one. Monkey bread is one of my favorite things, so we're going to jump in. All right, so first we're going to mix, well, first, before you mix anything, you want to grease your mug. So I've just taken some butter and swiped it around the inside of my mug so that nothing sticks too much to it. Now we are going to mix some flour, butter, and baking powder in a bowl to make our dough. So it's 2.5 tablespoons of flour. So that's our flour. Now we need 2 tablespoons of butter at room temperature. So this is my butter here. I'm going to measure 2 tablespoons, make a little indent, and then unwrap it and get it very soft. But there we go. Okay. So there's my butter. Okay. And baking powder. So we need half a teaspoon of baking powder, which is over here. Okay. Here's my half teaspoon. So I'm going to measure that. Okay. Put that in there with our other stuff. And I'm going to take a fork here and just kind of mix that together into until it's crumbly. All sorts of toppings and just fun things. So this is kind of the crumble consistency that we're going for. It's still kind of individual, but it's mixed together. So now what we're going to do is take our milk, which is in the fridge, so I'm going to grab that real quick. 3/4 tablespoon. I don't know how to measure that, so we're just gonna eyeball it again and do a not quite full tablespoon. So we're gonna say that's about 3/4 of a tablespoon. All right, and now we're going to mix this together into a dough. I hope that's good. We'll move on to our next step here. Okay, so our next step, we're going to take another tablespoon of butter. So I'm going to measure with my wrapper here and then slice it off right there. And we're going to put it into a microwave safe bowl and going to melt that completely for about 10 seconds. Because, believe it or not, you can actually boil butter in the microwave. Learned that the hard way. So we're going to take, set our melted butter aside and grab another bowl. So now we're going to mix our sugar and our cinnamon together to make our cinnamon sugar. So we need a tablespoon of white sugar, which is this one, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So I'm going to grab my sugar first. Okay. Cinnamon. I'm probably going to do like a heaping 1/4 teaspoon because I like cinnamon. So there we go. Now I'm just going to take a clean spoon and just mix that together until you have cinnamon sugar. So it's just nice and mixed together. Just set that aside somewhere. Okay. So now, this is the fun part. I'm going to clean up my workspace a little bit. I'm going to take our mug and our dough, our butter, and our cinnamon sugar, and we're going to break off 1/4 size balls of dough. So just a little pinch. This actually might still be too sticky. We're going to just kind of make it into a little ball. We're going to dunk it in our butter and then fish it out and dunk it in our cinnamon sugar and roll it around so it's nice and coated. And then we're going to drop that in our mug. And we're just going to repeat. Yeah. So we'll just squish that one in there. All right, so I'm going to take these, wash my hands real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have my clean hands. I'm going to set my mug to the side so I can make our sauce. So we need 2 tablespoons of butter. So again, I'm just going to measure here. Got just a little bit over 2 tablespoons, so I'm just going to cut off about 1/2 tablespoon here and plop the rest of this into my microwave safe bowl. And I'm going to melt that all the way. So probably about 30 seconds again. Okay, so that took about 30 seconds, and just remember to check it about every 10 seconds because you don't want it to get over warm. And now we are going to mix in 1½ tablespoons of brown sugar. So I'm going to grab my brown sugar and my floury tablespoon. I'm going to wipe that off and scoop out. There's 1 tablespoon. Just going to kind of eyeball 1/2 tablespoon and 1/2 tablespoon. So 1½ tablespoons of brown sugar. We'll measure out 4 1/4 teaspoons to make up 1 full teaspoon. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now we are going to stir that together with a clean spoon to make. So once that is nice and mixed together, we can take it and drizzle it over our little dough balls here. So I'm just going to take my spoon, make sure I got everything mixed up really well, and just kind of drizzle it over top. Especially make sure to cover up the ones that maybe don't have as much cinnamon sugar on them. We have a nice puddle of syrup around our monkey bread dough balls. So we will pop this in the microwave for about a minute or until it's golden brown. Okay, so when this one comes out, it is really hot, so grab a towel or a pot holder and definitely let it sit and cool off before you dig in because that syrup is very, very bubbly. But once it cools, guys, it smells so good. I wish you could smell it. You'll just have to dig in and enjoy it. And let me know what you think. We're going to let this cool off, and then we're going to go find some guinea pigs to taste test all of our mug creations today. So we'll be right back. All right, guys, so all 4 mug cakes are done. We are going to go take them around to some victims, taste testers, and we'll get some live reactions for you guys. So we'll see what happens next.